At 9:20 p.m., my phone buzzed. Transfer the mortgage tomorrow. My father wrote like it was a punishment, not a payment. 2 hours earlier, my mother had smiled as she handed out dessert. Everyone got a slice but my son. He didn't earn it, she said. The room laughed. He didn't. I helped him with his coat, and we walked into the cold without looking back. That text, it wasn't a reminder. It was a test. And maybe for the first time in my life, I was ready to fail it on purpose because Thanksgiving always looked perfect in my family. Gold candles, crystal plates, my mother's smile polished for guests. From the outside, you'd think the Caldwells were the picture of tradition. But every photo on those walls was edited, cropped around the truth. My name's Sarah, the quiet one, the firstborn. The one who learned early that love here came with receipts. My mother, Elaine, has a gift for control disguised as grace. She hosts, she smiles, she decides who's earned affection that day. My father, Victor, runs everything like a business. Trust funds, mortgages, even emotions. He thinks kindness should earn interest. My younger sister, Chloe, never had to earn anything. She's the golden child, the one who always gets refills before asking. And Jason, my older brother, learned to survive by staying silent, orbiting between them and me like a buffer no one thanked. After my divorce, I stopped showing up as often. I thought distance might cool the pattern. Maybe make them miss us. It didn't. Victor offered to help with my mortgage folded into the family trust. Said it would make things simple. But I knew what that meant. He wanted my house, my independence under his name. I refused politely. Since then, he's treated every dollar I make as defiance. This Thanksgiving was supposed to be neutral ground. No arguments, no strings. I told Noah, my 10-year-old, that we just eat, smile, and leave early. He was excited he'd helped make cranberry sauce, even wrote a little card for Grandma. When we arrived, Elaine kissed my cheek like she was hosting a stranger. She placed Noah's bowl behind her own store-bought dish, pretending not to notice. Dinner started the same way it always did, laughter inside jokes about people not at the table. Subtle jabs meant to sound like compliments. Victor opened a bottle of wine he said was for those who appreciate quality, then poured a glass for Chloe's 11-year-old daughter, because apparently she did. Noah asked why we didn't have mashed potatoes this year. Elaine smiled sharp and sweet because some people don't need more starch. Jason's eyes flicked toward me just once like he wanted to say something but didn't. I pressed my hand on Noah's shoulder, kept my voice even. "It's fine," I whispered. But it wasn't. That dinner was already the beginning of the end. The night stretched long, heavy with forced laughter and clinking forks. My mother's dining room gleamed, polished silver floral napkins folded into perfect fans. Every detail rehearsed for admiration. The only thing out of place was the silence between me and my son. Noah sat across from the twins, Ava and Lily, who were busy showing Grandma the frosting flowers on their cupcakes. Elaine laughed, her bracelets chiming like applause. "Such polite girls," she said loudly. I knew the volume was deliberate. It was a performance for the room, a reminder of who belonged and who didn't. Noah reached for the water pitcher, careful, gentle. Still, Elaine's eyes caught the movement. "Sweetheart," she said, voice dipped in sugar. "Let's let the grown-ups handle that, okay?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The twins giggled. Victor cleared his throat, poured himself more wine, pretending not to notice. Every few minutes, my mother found a new way to remind me that I'd fallen short of her script. A crooked napkin, a quiet child, a life too independent for her taste. It was always the same. But this time, something inside me had stopped bending. When dessert came, Noah's face lit up. My mother's pumpkin cheesecake was his favorite. He'd spent the night before helping me make a smaller version at home, practicing for this exact moment. I watched as the tray circled the table. Chloe's daughters first, then Chloe herself, then Jason's youngest. Thick slices, generous the way love is supposed to look. Finally, the tray reached Elaine again. She set it down, knife still in hand, and glanced at Noah. He didn't earn it after the way he acted, she said, smooth as silk. The room froze. Noah blinked, confused. I'm sorry, Grandma. What did I do? She didn't answer. She just reached for the whipped cream, adding another spoonful to Ava's plate. Jason shifted in his chair. His wife stared down at her napkin. Chloe looked everywhere but at me. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Not anger exactly, but clarity. Years of swallowing small humiliations, pretending not to notice. The line between restraint and surrender snapped. Noah whispered, "It's okay, Mom." His voice was small but steady. I smiled at him. "I know, sweetheart." I stood up slowly, the chair legs scraping against the polished floor. I took his coat from the back of the chair, knelt, and helped him slip into it. The room watched, but no one spoke. Elaine's voice broke the silence. "You're really leaving?" I looked at her, not with hate, not even with hurt, just the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. We already stayed too long. We walked out. The air outside was cold and clean. For the first time in years, it felt like I could breathe. The drive home was silent, except for the wipers scraping across the windshield. Noah sat in the back seat, clutching his little paper turkey from school, the one he'd meant to show Grandma. Streetlights stray like passing memories. When we pulled into the driveway, he asked quietly, "Did I do something wrong?" I turned to him. "No, honey. You did everything right. Sometimes people act cruel when they want to feel powerful." He nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed distant, as if trying to make sense of a world that didn't play fair. Inside, I made him hot cocoa, extra marshmallows. He smiled a little, sipped, and went to bed without another word. When I tucked him in, he whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I don't need dessert." That broke me more than anything my parents had said. Downstairs, the house was quiet. The hum of the fridge, the faint tick of the clock. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the half-finished cheesecake we'd baked the night before, the one no one tasted. My phone buzzed on the counter. 10:13 p.m. A text from Dad. "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." Just that. No, please. No hope you got home safe. Just a command like I worked for him. I stared at the screen, my reflection dim in the glass. It wasn't just about money. It never was. It was about control. Every loan, every favor, every reminder that I was the one who owed. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop. The glow lit up the kitchen as I clicked through my payments and statements. Line by line, I traced every tie that led back to him. The trust fund, the joint investments, the property connections. Every chain disguised as help. Then I opened a blank document and started writing. Not a letter, not an explanation, a list. Every time they'd use generosity as leverage, every time. Silence cost me dignity. Every time I'd told myself it's not worth fighting. By the time I stopped, it was past midnight. The words felt like bricks, solid, final. I took one last bite of that cheesecake just to taste what my son had been denied. It wasn't sweet. It was fuel. Then I texted one person, "Jason, we need to talk." He replied almost instantly, "Tomorrow morning I'll come by." I closed my laptop. The house was still the night, sharp and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. Jason showed up the next morning before I'd even finished my coffee. He looked uneasy, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. The same half-apologetic look he always wore when he came as the family messenger. Mom said, "You overreacted?" he began. I laughed. Not loud, just the kind of laugh that comes from finally running out of patience. "Overreacted? She humiliated your nephew over a piece of cheesecake?" He exhaled. "Yeah, I know. I saw it. I should have said something." I didn't answer. I just handed him my phone, the text from Dad glowing on the screen. "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." Jason read it twice, his jaw tightening. He really sent this right after dinner. 10:13, I said, down to the minute. He looked up. "What do you want me to do?" It was the first time he'd ever asked that question. Usually he tried to keep peace, to keep distance, but something had changed. Maybe watching Mom cut Noah out of dessert broke something in him too. "I want out," I said completely. From the trust, the mortgage, everything tied to them. Jason nodded slowly, thinking, "That's possible. Complicated, but possible." He hesitated before adding, "There's something else you should know." He explained that while refinancing his house last year, he'd seen paperwork for the lake house, the second home our parents bragged about, as their retirement dream. 10 years ago, I had co-signed part of the down payment before my divorce just to help. They said my name would be temporary, just until their finances cleared, but no one had ever taken it off. So technically, Jason said, "You're still part owner." I blinked. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "And they're about to lease it for summer. 5 figures a month. They didn't tell you because they assumed you wouldn't notice." Something in me shifted. All those years of being dismissed, diminished, treated like background noise. And now I had something that couldn't be ignored. "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "I just want them out of my life." Jason met my eyes. "Then let's make that legal." That afternoon, we met with the family's attorney, the same man who'd handled every Caldwell asset for decades. He greeted us politely, not yet aware he was sitting in the middle of a storm. I told him I wanted to separate my portion of the trust to close every shared account linked to my father. Jason supported me, calm and steady. The lawyer hesitated clearly, uncomfortable. "Your parents might not." I cut him off. "They don't get a vote." He nodded, typing quietly. The sound of keys felt like a heartbeat. When we left, Jason turned to me. "You know they'll come after you for this, right?" "I know," I said, "but they'll come to a locked door." 3 days later, it started. 6 missed calls from my mother, 3 from Dad, 1 voicemail. "You're sabotaging this family, Sarah. That boy of yours needs to learn his place. If you keep pushing, you'll regret it." Her voice was calm. Too calm, like she was reading from a script she'd practiced her whole life. I forwarded it to Jason. He texted back 5 words. "We're done officially this time." The next morning, I got an email from the trust administrator. Subject line: pending amendment request. I stared at it heart steady, not racing. This was control slipping from their hands, and I knew it. But my parents weren't the kind to surrender quietly. January 7th, Jason's birthday. It had always been the only family gathering that felt halfway genuine. No decorations, just pizza kids running around laughter that didn't feel rehearsed. So when my phone buzzed that morning with a tag notification, I didn't think much of it until I saw the post. A photo of the lake house decked out with lights and banners. My mother's caption read, "Surprise party for our amazing son, the man who holds our family together." She tagged everyone, Jason, his wife, his kids, not me, not Noah. I called Jason immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice sharp. "What the hell is this?" "They didn't tell you?" I asked. "No," he said flatly. "They just decided." We looked at each other over speakerphone, both quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We're going." When we pulled up to the lake house, the driveway was packed. Cars lined the road. Music drifted out from the patio, low and polished like a soundtrack to their denial. Inside, relatives I hadn't seen in years held glasses of wine. My mother stood near the fireplace, glowing under soft lights. When she saw us, her face flickered. Shock, then panic, then a smile that didn't fit. Jason, Sarah. What a surprise, she said too brightly. Jason didn't waste time. Why did you post that party like I planned it? Her hand froze mid-gesture. It was meant to be a nice surprise. No, he said. His voice cut through the room like glass breaking. You used me to fix your image. People started whispering. My father stepped forward, jaw tight. Lower your voice, son. Jason turned to the crowd. For everyone here, this wasn't my idea. It's just another performance. And if you came thinking this was a real family celebration, you've been misled. Silence. Someone coughed. A cousin set down his drink. My mother's face flushed. We were trying to make peace. Peace doesn't start with lies, I said quietly. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. You don't have to do this here. Yes, I do, Jason said, because this is the only language you understand an audience. The whispers turned to murmurs. Someone took out a phone. My father's expression curdled into pure fury. Jason took a deep breath. If you keep pretending, you'll end up celebrating alone. And just like that, we turned and walked out. Behind us, the music cut off. The chatter died. My mother's voice called our names, brittle breaking. But we didn't look back. Outside, the air was cold, sharp against my lungs. Jason stopped by the car, looking at me. You okay? Better than I've been in years. He smiled faintly. Then it's done. But it wasn't. Not yet. Not until they felt what it was, like to lose control completely. The next morning, I got a knock at my door, a delivery envelope. Inside, a typed letter from my father's accountant warning about the serious tax consequences of splitting the trust. A note stapled to it read, "Don't make emotional decisions." I laughed. It was the same tone he used when I was 16 when I'd said I wanted to choose my own college. I took a picture of the letter and sent it to Jason. 5 minutes later, he called. Check your email. There it was, a scanned document, the finalized amendment, beneficiaries. Victor and Elaine Caldwell are hereby removed from future disbursements. I stared at it, heartbeat steady. Jason said, "They'll be at your door before sunset." He was right. At 4:17 p.m., a knock echoed through the house. Not frantic measured. When I looked through the peephole, they were standing on the sidewalk, not even close enough to the porch like strangers, unsure if they belonged. I opened the door, but didn't step out. My mother smiled faintly. "Can we talk for a minute about what I asked?" "This isn't how family handles things," my father said. "Family doesn't go through lawyers." I met his eyes. "You're right. Family doesn't use mortgages as leashes either." Elaine stepped forward. "We just want to find a way back. We'll apologize to Noah." I waited quiet. She didn't add anything. "An apology isn't a transaction," I said. "You don't get to offer it like currency." My father's jaw clenched. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I said. "I think I finally understand you." I stepped back, my hand on the door. "You're a lesson, not a legacy." Then I closed it. Their silhouette stayed outside for a few seconds, then disappeared into the dusk. That night, the house was quiet again. Noah was asleep, his breath even. Jason texted effective immediately. "They're out permanently." I set my phone down, leaned against the wall, and let the stillness settle. I didn't feel triumphant, just clean, like the noise had finally stopped. 3 days passed before I heard from Jason again. A single text appeared while I was making breakfast for Noah. "It's official. Trust split confirmed." No exclamation points, no celebration, just fact. I opened my email and saw the document sitting there. My portion separated my parents' names crossed out from future distributions. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. That afternoon, I picked Noah up from school. He ran toward me, backpack, bouncing cheeks flushed from the cold. "Can we make cookies tonight?" he asked. "Of course," I said. We spent the evening in the kitchen. Flour dusted the counter. The smell of vanilla filled the air. Noah shaped stars and trees, laughing when one broke apart. I hadn't realized how long it had been since our home felt like this, light, unguarded. When the first batch came out, he offered me one. "These are better than Grandma's," he said, half smiling. I almost corrected him, then stopped. He was right. They were. Later, after he went to bed, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The night was still, the air crisp enough to sting my lungs. Across the yard, the lights from Jason's house flickered through the trees. We had dinner there the night before, just us, his wife, the kids, and Noah. No speeches, no guilt, no judgment, just peace. During dinner, Jason had raised his glass to choosing peace, he said softly, even when it cost us blood. Everyone clinked glasses, even Noah with his orange juice. Now, as I sat under the quiet sky, I thought about everything my parents had tried to build, the control, the fear, the appearances, they'd lost all of it the second I stopped playing along. My phone buzzed once more. A missed call from Mom. No voicemail, just silence. Her favorite weapon finally turned useless. I didn't call back. Instead, I looked through the window where Noah's drawings covered the fridge, messy, bright, alive. The world she'd tried to shrink was growing again, right here in this little house they once dismissed as too small. For the first time, dessert wasn't a prize to be earned. It was just dessert. I watched the porch light flicker against the snow, tiny flakes spinning like ash in the wind. Inside, Noah's laughter drifted from his room, soft, safe, untouched by the people who once claimed to love us. I took a slow sip of tea and let the quiet fill the space where their voices used to live. Maybe that's what freedom really sounds like. Not applause, not revenge, just the absence of their control. I thought about that night at 9:20 p.m., the text that tried to chain me again. They wanted obedience. What they got was silence that no one could command. Boundaries don't break families. Control does. And if you've ever had to protect your child from your own blood, you know exactly what I mean. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's justice wrapped in grace. Silent revenge.